A young mother gunned down in broad daylight
We could tell that the shooter walked in very casually.
with her infant son just a few feet away. What did that tell you about the murder?
And that it was cold and calculating, and it was clear it wasn't random.
Police searching for answers. How did it feel watching your daughter's killer leave the scene?
It was like watching evil and nothing you could do about it.
A bitter custody dispute would bring the killer into focus. So you thought it was possible he could have hired a hitman?
Knew that there was a contention in this divorce.
And reveal the ultimate betrayal.
We never would have guessed the person that it turned out to be.
Hi, I'm Nancy Odell. Today's Crime Exposé takes us to Snellville, Georgia, a quiet suburb east of Atlanta. It is the last place you would expect a cold-blooded crime to occur in a crowded parking lot. But that's just what happened when 25-year-old Heather Strube was gunned down in broad daylight. The savage crime baffled law enforcement and left her heartbroken family grasping for answers. It was just after 6 on a muggy spring evening when a call came into the police department. The caller was frantic and said there had been a shooting at the local shopping center.
A woman had been shot in the parking lot.
Within minutes, detectives were on the scene. They found the victim lying next to the driver's side of a red SUV with an unharmed toddler strapped in his car seat.
In the victim's car was her infant. He was about 18 months old at the time.
While officers whisked the little boy to safety, detectives found the victim's purse with her wallet and driver's license still inside. Who was the victim?
The victim was Heather Strube.
Detectives located a witness who had seen the deadly encounter from a distance. Heather had just buckled her son into his car seat when the killer approached.
The shooter followed the victim around the vehicle as the victim tried to get into the car. The shooter produced the handgun, fired one shot, and then just casually walked away.
Investigators hoped the witness had seen where the killer had fled. So did the witness see where the gunman went?
As soon as the shot was fired and the victim fell to the ground, the suspect immediately walked away, but in a casual pace, back towards the store and around the corner of the building.
Why was that noticeable? What did it tell you about the murder?
That it was cold and calculating.
The horrific news quickly reached Heather's parents. They had no idea that 2 words could turn their lives into a nightmare.
Those 2 words, Heather's dead.
I can't even imagine what you must have been feeling.
It's like you got a balloon full of air and the bottom of it just opens up and all the air rushes out.
The pain of losing their 25-year-old daughter was unbearable.
We just had no inkling of why. Who was going to gain anything from murdering this beautiful, loving, caring, kind young woman? It made no sense.
With Heather's car and personal items left at the scene, robbery was quickly ruled out as a motive. As detectives looked at those closest to her, they learned she had recently asked her husband Stephen for a divorce.
She found out that Stephen had been unfaithful to her, and she was hoping that they could repair that. But attempts to get the counseling did not work out. So it became clear that her only option was going to be to file for divorce.
At the time of the homicide, Heather and Stephen were battling in court over custody of their 18-month-old son, Carson. They had agreed to meet in the shopping center parking lot so Stephen could hand over Carson.
Heather wanted to make sure that wherever the swap took place, it was a public place.
Did you think it was possible that Stephen could have committed the murder?
I knew he and Heather had had words and they had had disagreements.
All of the clues were pointing in one direction. So who did you think the shooter could be?
Stephen, because we knew that there was a contention in this divorce.
He had a clear motive to commit the callous crime.
If Heather was eliminated, then Stephen would become Carson's sole parent.
"25-year-old Heather Strube had been gunned down in a crowded parking lot, and Heather's devastated family was struggling to cope with the shocking tragedy.
Heather was just an amazing young woman. She had a sunny personality. She always looked for the best in anyone that she met, and she tended to bring out the best in whoever she met.
Heather had been a doting mother to her 18-month-old son, Carson.
She loved being a mother, and she loved taking care of him, and she loved spending time with him. She just wanted to be the best mother she could be.
Heather had recently fulfilled her dream of starting her very own flower shop.
She really enjoyed working with flowers and making beautiful things for people.
And running the store had become a family affair. Who in the family worked with Heather at the flower shop?
Stephen's mother volunteered to work there, kind of be a customer service person and to help out with Carson.
But Heather had recently asked Stephen for a divorce, and since the shooting had taken place during their child custody exchange, detectives wondered if Heather's ex had committed the crime. Heather had hoped the measures she had taken would keep her safe. What were those measures? What precautions did Heather take?
Because of the situation where Heather was afraid that something could occur, so she wanted this swap to happen in a public place, and that was the key. It had to be public.
Investigators located more witnesses who had been close to Heather's car.
Witnesses saw the swap take place. As soon as Stephen handed Carson over to Heather, he immediately got back in his vehicle and drove away.
So the witnesses were positive they had seen Stephen leave the parking lot before the shooting took place.
The witnesses knew that he was gone.
But a chilling possibility still remained.
Well, he obviously could have hired somebody to do it,
So you thought he could have hired a hitman?
or he could have gotten a friend to do it. So we had to bring him in at that point and question him thoroughly.
While Stephen was brought to the station, police located parking lot surveillance footage that had caught the shooter on camera. So what did the killer look like?
A very slender young man with a button-down shirt, pants, cap, a very bushy type hair with a mustache, anywhere from 5'4" to 5'7".
A composite was created and distributed to the media. Detectives hoped it would be the lead that would blow the case wide open. When you saw the surveillance video, did you or your wife recognize the suspect?
No, we didn't. We had no idea who that could be.
How incredibly difficult was it to watch your daughter's killer leaving the scene?
It was like watching evil, and nothing you could do about it.
The cold-blooded crime paralyzed the community with fear.
The incident was located in a major shopping center. There were a lot of people in the parking lot, so it was very shocking to everyone.
Investigators couldn't find any evidence to suggest Heather's ex-husband Stephen had anything to do with the cold-blooded crime. Detectives were frustrated. The killer's identity continued to elude them.
We had to find out if there was anybody who had any reason to want to harm Heather.
Only one thing was certain: the killer had to be somebody who knew when and where the custody exchange would take place. So how many people were aware that Heather would be in the parking lot at that time?
We found out that there were about 12 people total who knew that that could occur there.
So did that make you feel like I'm closing in here on the killer?
There were only 12 people.
As detectives dug into their list of suspects, no one could have imagined the stunning direction the investigation would take.
We never would have guessed the person that it turned out to be.
Detectives investigating Heather Strube's homicide had narrowed down their list of possible suspects to 12. So you felt positive at that time that it had to be one of those 12 people who knew that Heather would be in the parking lot at that time picking up her son.
It narrowed the focus. We knew exactly where we needed to look. It certainly directed how we proceeded with the investigation.
And then a tip came in that would help law enforcement crack the case. A witness had seen the suspect from the composite fleeing the scene. And did that witness get a good look at the killer's vehicle?
He had seen this white Ford F-150 older model pickup truck behind the shopping center. He also saw the person who got in it and felt it was a disguise.
There must have been some reason that the witness thought this was a disguise.
It was like a Sonny Bono wig. It had this sort of wild sticking out hair. And even the mustache was a little crooked.
And only one person on the suspect list drove that exact type of truck. And who was that?
Stephen's mother, Joanna Hayes.
So was the body type of the suspect in the video similar to Joanna Hayes?
She matched the physical description of the person. Even though all the witnesses said it was a man, there was a lot about it that made us believe, based on the size after viewing the video, that it was either a woman or a younger teenager, someone who was pretty small. So all those things together led us to believe that she was the one who did it, but we didn't have any direct evidence at that point.
When detectives showed Heather Strube images of Heather's killer, they seemed to hit him hard.
As he looked at it, you could see his body language and how he responded to it. And the investigator asked him, said, "You know who that is?"
And did he admit that the killer was his own mother?
He basically says, yes, that's her. That was her walk that he saw in the parking lot that day from the video. So he was convinced at that point that she was the one who did it.
Investigators asked him to call his mother and confront her.
He told her that he had seen the video and that it was her. And her answer basically is, "Did you tell them it was me?" And he said yes. And so she said, "Well, I guess I better get dressed. They're probably coming to get me."
And what was going through your mind when you heard that?
It was very cold as you listen to it. Here's your 25-year-old son calling you and crying, and yet you're very cold and very dismissive. So.
Detectives brought Joanna Hayes to the station for an interrogation.
You knew that they exchanging at Target 6 o'clock every other weekend?
No, sir.
You did not know?
No, but my son said it's me. I just don't believe it.
You don't think he said that?
No.
Is he lying?
I don't know, maybe we need to go get his glasses.
So when you asked her point blank if she was the one who had murdered Heather, what did she say?
She just would say, "I didn't have any reason to do that. Why would I want to do that?"
Armed with a warrant, forensic experts searched her truck. Did they find any evidence in the truck?
Found one fiber in the truck that was similar to what could have been from a wig.
They scoured her home looking for the disguise the killer had been wearing.
We never found it.
But at that point, did you still have enough evidence against her?
Everything that we had was totally circumstantial. There's no one piece of evidence that pointed directly to say she's the one who did it, but everything together, it meant that she was the only one who could have done it.
Joanna Hayes was placed under arrest. Why do you think Joanna Hayes murdered your daughter?
The assumption all along was that she would be able to basically be Carson's mother. Even though she was the grandmother, she would be the one driving the ship that Carson was on.
So when you process this motive, it must have sickened you.
It was just so hard to believe. If you cared anything about your grandchild, wouldn't you care that he was being able to be raised by his own mother? Didn't you consider what kind of damage that would do to that child?
But prosecutors knew the trial could be an uphill battle.
It was going to be a very difficult prosecution.
The courtroom was silent as Heather Strube, the prosecutor's star witness, took the stand and testified against his own mother. What went through your mind when, in court, under oath, he said his mother is the one who shot your daughter?
I was surprised that he actually did it, that he actually identified her. He owed that much to those of us that were still alive, and particularly owed it to Heather. to be truthful.
Prosecutors were convinced his powerful testimony had solidified their case.
I think it would be difficult for a juror to think that a son would believe that if she hadn't been the one who did it. You wouldn't say that your mother did it if you didn't really believe it.
Joanna Hayes took the stand in her own defense.
Prosecution used your son's own words against you.
And now he's got to live with that. They told him repeatedly, call your mom, do this, and we will go help you get your son.
What did you think or feel when she said she was miles away when the murder happened?
She had her story, and she was sticking to it, and no sign of remorse.
I know I haven't done anything wrong with no physical evidence to put me at the scene, or no DNA to put in anything that I own. The fact that every eyewitness said no, I can't identify her sitting in a courtroom today.
She wouldn't admit to anything.
But the jurors weren't buying it and came back with their verdict, guilty. When that verdict was read, what did you and your wife do?
We put our heads down and we cried because of how senseless and how unnecessary this had been. And thank God that it was over.
Heather's loved ones will be forever grateful to law enforcement who refused to rest until their daughter's killer was brought to justice.
We were so appreciative of the legal system in the county. The DA and the assistant DA had been wonderful to us, along with the police and the investigators, and they figured it out.
But nothing will ever replace their vivacious and beautiful daughter. In an instant, her life was cut brutally short, along with her hopes and dreams of raising her precious little boy.
Well, since a daily reminder of her lives with me in the form of Carson, my grandson, and the things I see in him that I saw in her, it's a blessing, but it's also heart-wrenching. I just wish she could be here to see him.
After the guilty verdict, Joanna Hayes, Heather Strube's mother-in-law, was sentenced to life in prison without parole. 2 years later, she appealed, but her conviction was upheld by the Supreme Court of Georgia. And now it's time for our safety spotlight. Focus on personal safety is crucial, and so is recognizing that tragedy can come when you least expect it. Such was the case when Heather Strube was ruthlessly targeted and killed by her mother-in-law in broad daylight. In this case, it was a custody dispute which further exacerbated tension and hostility. Heather did everything right in her exchange by going to a public place in the daytime. But because custody is so emotional for many members of the family, things can get out of control. Law enforcement say you can even exchange children at police or fire stations to help minimize risk. In fact, many cities have designated safe zones for child custody exchanges, and you can find those locations by calling your local authorities. I'm Nancy O'Dell. For all of us here at Crime Exposé, please join us next time and stay safe.